Thank you very much, Chairman. Thank you, Vicky and ORG for inviting us. Thank you, Chairman. I would like to share some thoughts on the theme of the session, which is the first line of defense, the private sector. We heard in this morning the views from both NSA and Honorable Minister, and perhaps they were the trendsetters for the sessions to follow. Taking some clues from that and their mindset, we belong to the private sector. I had the opportunity of being in the government sector about a few years ago, and now I have seen the realities coming back to the private sector here. The main theme questions which we like to cover, my colleagues and myself, how can the public-private, actually first that the private sector in the country as outside the country also holds data, services, 80% of services and 80% of all the communication which is taking place is in the hands of private sector, as also the solution providers, as the service providers, as application service providers, and the content and whatever, handling of data and so on. And even in the critical sectors which have been identified by the government, it is related to the private sector. The access of the private sector there to implement. So we will be discussing perhaps, with the permission of Chairman, how can PPP models be developed and strengthened in the sphere of cybersecurity, which is public-private partnership. And how can information sharing be, or mutual self-defense pacts with private sector and with the government to be made more effective. Based on some issues, we'll try to find out the possibilities and the issues and the obstacles which are in to have PPP in the cybersecurity domain. First of all, there is an issue about cybersecurity, and which both the government sector and the private sector is about predictability. So if we are having known knowns, known unknowns, and unknown unknowns in the cybersecurity, there's a lot to share amongst the government and the private sector. I do not know, there are people who are using the services, who are connected in the cyberspace and who are not connected to the cyberspace. We talk of critical infrastructure this morning. It's not necessary that everybody is connected by computers in the cyberspace, but the fallout is on common man also. If there's an attack on the power grid, for example, if there's an attack on the banking systems, or attack on the telecom, which are the critical sectors identified by the National Security Advisor and the government, the individuals are also affected. They also become the stakeholders. The civil society also becomes a stakeholder. So, in fact, who represents private sector to have a dialogue with the government is a question we will discuss. Some statistics were given this morning, but very interestingly, out of the 900 million mobile phones and other people, we found out some survey, and there are people, 30% people who operate their device in the bed, 50% in the morning, 50% while commuting, before noon 50%, lunch 45%, afternoon 48%, evening 65%. That is the time when people get connected, and 35% late evening, and 65% people who are late night sleepers. So it's a multi-stakeholder issue, not only the government, not only the corporates, not only those who are belonging to public sector of critical infrastructure, but also the people who are users of this information and internet and other things. So it's a multi-stakeholder issue. I had the privilege of participating in all the sub-working with the joint working groups with the government in SA for the last 18 months, and that there is a shift in government thought process from being just a regulator or a mandate or a provider or cyber policing. They are also becoming facilitators to encourage private consultation, and that is a very, very heartening thing to say. Therefore, there are issues about what corporate wants, what SMEs want. There was a mention of small and medium enterprises, what individuals want, and how to correlate all these things. Sometimes there's an issue where private sector or a corporate is considered about self goals and self objectives of profit, return on investment. There are doubts sometimes in the mind of the management, and there could be real doubts also, that whether spending on security, whether searching on security, working on security, is there a return of investment? Does it help our business? It helps. It does. We'll answer some of those things. Funding, where the funding would come from. When we talk of public-private partnerships and private sector being the first in defense, do they secure their own organizations, or they participate in national ventures and critical infrastructure dialogues and debates? Where the funding comes from? Where the expertise? Is it the international cooperation, or do we have possibilities and programs, as said in our cybersecurity policy, national telecom policy, and others, that there's a need to bring awareness right from young age, catch-22, to the experts in the field. And therefore, corporate, though, has their own security programs. They have their interest of their big business, because Indian companies are now becoming global, and global solutions, global hosting, cloud, and other things require that we make our cyberspace more secure. But who has got the complete threat perception? There has to be information sharing between public and the private domain. It is very, very important. Then the issues of information. See, most of the corporates, most of the SMEs are currently bothered about information security. Is information security different than cybersecurity? There are issues about it. Cybersecurity is a larger space, and information security is IT and telecom or network security and so on. Can we trust each other? There is a big question raised in the morning, that there has to be trust, and one the trust between public and the private institutions. Concept of government to common man, concept of government to regulator and the corporates. What is the relationship between regulator and corporate? Whether the regulator is becoming a facilitator in terms of guiding. Like CERTINs, there was 3 releases have been there in the country for the last 2.5 years. They have been working together, and 2013 has been a landmark year when national telecom policy, when cybersecurity policy, when guidelines for protecting critical infrastructure of the country came into being. And then all these things came out as government documents. People at large will not even understand whether private sector was consulted when these documents were brought out. So also, when we talk of critical infrastructure, do the same rules apply to corporates? Do the same threats apply to corporates? Do the same threats apply to the small and medium enterprises? Is a question to consider. It could be very heavy when we talk of national critical infrastructure. But could smaller and medium enterprises be protected against different cyber threats? Maybe threat perception may be same, but application may be different. When I remember 60 years ago or 55 years ago, when I was a 60 years ago when I was school going, my concept of government was policeman. But that was my limitation, because I was scared of the policeman. Now, the corporate, is it scared of government? Is it scared of some mandates and all that? Or should we have a philosophy where we facilitate each other, we share information amongst ourselves, and then what is the contribution given by the government in terms of money? What is the contribution given by the public sector or private sector in terms of money, because it costs money? So the first initiative was taken by Department of Telecom also. They mandated, they upgraded, or they amended the license agreements. The license agreements for the service providers, that you must follow these things to come out and protect your networks in the interest of what? Your network for your interest or for national interest. Though the assets are in private domain, though the solutions and services are in the private domain, but economy, but the people who are connected, they are the people whom we are also responsible as corporates. So India has its own types of issues. We talk of global cooperation and all that. Yes, these are the best practices. But these best practices, they should. We should do like this. We should behave like this. We should implement this. But when it comes to shell, we'll have to take our own decisions, how fast, how good we can do it. There's a chance for India to participate, private sector to participate. We have a very big industry. We have good industry, NESCOM and other software industry. We have telecom industry. We have banking and other people and all that. So perhaps a good step would be, based on the expertise available in this industry, to develop tools which are security tools, security testing tools, security solutions which can additionally be used in our solutions, networks, and services. Of course, it is all supervised by two institutions like National Information Security Coordination Cell, NSIS, CCI. They have announced such policies after a lot of consultation of 18 months with private sector. We have been participating, FICCI has been participating, the industry ASSOCHAM and CII and some of our operator associations have participated in consultation. But what ultimately comes out looks like a mandate from the government. So therefore, one has to consider that whether we are going to have a down-up approach or an up-down approach and meet in the middle somewhere so that the issues of both the national, public, that is government objectives and private objectives are met somewhere. Yeah. So, in fact, I had a discussion with certain director generals where people in the private sector or corporate sector are supposed to report back to the government the incidences they have been facing. And we get advisories from the government what are the threats as they are connected with cyber certains of other countries and global environment. I propose to them that let's have categorization of threats. What threats are critical at the national level? What threats are critical at large corporates, financial institutions, banking sector, and all others? And what threats are really important for small and medium enterprises? And what threats are for the individuals who are connected or not connected to cyberspace? So there's a fluid categorization. We have to have a good categorization of sharing information. And once the information is shared relevant to the relevant stakeholders, then the really private-public partnership can prosper rather than general sharing of information. The first step towards sharing of information and participating in PPP mode is bringing awareness. So therefore, we have to bring academia. We have to bring training institutions. We have to bring all other stakeholders, the learned and the expertise from outside to make ourselves more aware. Good that a beginning has been made. Government has taken very strong initiatives, and you heard this morning about the confidence level which was at least shown when they said that we understand the problem, we understand the issue, we understand the issues not only from global best practices, but what is applicable to our country. So therefore, I think the beginning has been made by the government, and the corporate is already using such methods to secure their own business, their business interests, service interests, and so on. So we have to convert the should into shall. Should is best practices, and there was discussion in the morning which best practices, east best practices or west best practices. Perhaps we have to have a pragmatic understanding which are the best practices, or which are the good practices, or which are the implementable practices as far as India is concerned. And this is a rare opportunity, perhaps, for us in India to participate not only internally, but also to participate outside of the country. I have a couple of other discussion points.
I think if you could wrap it up in
one or two more. One or two more is the issue of sort of a win-win situation. The partnerships only sustain if there is a win-win situation. What I gain becomes sometimes the issue. Therefore, we have to understand and ask the government, this is where I am and I need your help. And government to say, this is what you want at a national level and how should you contribute. These are some of the basic questions when the panel proceeds. I'll have some information. I'll also share some information. But these are the issues which I am, as a starter of this panel discussion, I'm raising, which I'll also be answering some. Thank you.
Thanks, Vijay. I'll now turn to Joe for his comments.